Here we go. I'd like to call the business meeting of the Portland Board of Public Education to order. It is Tuesday, September 8th. The Portland Board of Public Education is meeting virtually through Zoom. May I please ask the superintendent to call the roll?
Yes, Mr. Chair, Mr. Atkinson.
Here.
Mr. Balfons.
Here.
Ms. Bondo.
Présente.
Mr. Burke.
Here.
Ms. Figdor.
Here.
Ms. Morioni.
Here.
Ms. Thompson.
Here.
Ms. Trevorrow. And Chair Rodriguez.
Presente. Would everyone, actually, let's get the flag on the screen and we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance.
And can you do that? Do you want me to do it? There we go.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Right, I need a motion for us to enter into executive session.
So moved.
Ms. Thompson, second by Ms. Figdor. All those in agreement, we can do a raise your hand vote. And it's unanimous. Remember, there's only 8 of us here tonight. All right. Everyone has the link for the executive session room? Okay. I'll see you guys there in a minute. Okay. I think all board members are here. Are the attendees already allowed to enter the room? Yep. We have a handful of them already. All right. So we are back from executive session. In our agenda, we're up to the chair's remarks. So I just want to go over our Zoom meeting procedures, and then I'll hand it over to the superintendent. Just a reminder that when we hold our meetings on Zoom, all votes are taken by a roll call. The board members will use the raise your hand feature found by selecting the participant button at the bottom of the screen or on the sidebar. The chair will acknowledge the speakers, and the school board members will then lower their hands when they're finished speaking. Any opportunity for public comment will be announced, and members of the public will also use the raise the hand feature provided by Zoom. And this feature is either found on the webinar control bar at the bottom of the screen, or it can be found by selecting your name on the participant's screen. I will call the name of the person, the Zoom name of the person, and ask them that they please start introducing their name and address. Then they'll have 3 minutes to comment. And should the speaker near the 3-minute mark, I'll try to politely interrupt them. And if additional time is needed, we can grant 1 additional minute. And at the end of that minute, I will probably mute the speaker's microphone. Having said that, the only other thing that I wanted to mention as part of my remarks is just a reminder that this is a special business meeting from the school board in order to consider ratifying an agreement, a memorandum of agreement between the Portland Board of Education and the Portland Education Association, and that's an item on our agenda we'll get to shortly. Having said that, Superintendent, I'll hand it over to you for your report, if you have any remarks for tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't have written remarks for today. I'm going to keep it brief. In addition to what you just described, which is the ratification of the memorandum of agreement between the Portland Board of Education and the Portland Education Association, tonight, I also want to inform you and members of the public that we also entered into an agreement around health and safety precautions that is not included in the contract, but is a formal agreement signed by me and by the association that, in essence, does a couple of things. One, it's underlying it is, giving our staff a sense of assurance that we are going to meet or exceed the requirements laid out in the state's framework for reopening schools, so the 6 provisions. And so, we will, we agreed to that, and we will obviously follow through on that. And what it does is it also creates an enforcement mechanism. It creates a task force that I will appoint members to that will hear any concerns that are raised at the building level about the implementation of any of those safeguards, and within 24 hours find a mutually agreeable solution to those. So that is also part of what you're going to be, not what you're going to be acting, but part of what we also negotiated with the Portland Education Association. I also wanted to give you an update on where we are with an eye to school reopening. Tomorrow and Thursday is a test run of our school reopening. So this is an opportunity for kids to actually come into school, spend a little bit of time understanding the protocols and procedures that are going to be in place. So that is happening tomorrow and Thursday. It is not happening at Lyseth Elementary School and at King. At Lyseth, we do not have full possession of the building yet. As you know, it's under construction, and it is up for an inspection on the 10th. And we're feel comfortable that it will pass inspection. We will be ready to go on the 14th. But so for kids at Lyseth, their first test run is going to be the first 2 days of next week for Group A on Monday and Group B on Tuesday. And at King, we are still short on some of our staffing, so we're not ready to open for business tomorrow or Thursday, so we've pushed them off to next week, and we're still sort of looking at whether we will be able to open for in-person learning at King, pending some additional hiring and vetting of our readiness. We also, I also want to let you know that one of the areas where our staffing is not quite where we need it to be is around our English language learners. So we have made a decision that we would postpone bringing IELD students back for 4 days a week in a number of schools yet to be determined, that we are where we just don't feel that we have the staffing or the space worked out where we're able to do that. So we're projecting at those schools that we will postpone bringing IELD students for 4 days of instruction until October 13th. So the day that we're scheduled to bring all students back for 5 days of in-person instruction is when we will be ready to go at those schools. I will continue to keep you updated on where we are with that. But at this point, we feel ready to open all of our schools with the exception of those that I just mentioned now. So that's it for my report.
Thank you, Superintendent. Just a quick heads up, Marnie was not able to come back into the webinar. So, and I'm not sure if you were able to send her another link.
I'll follow up.
Okay, perfect. So having said that, we'll move on to new business, consideration and action to ratify the Memorandum of Agreement between the Portland Board of Education and the Portland Education Association. Is there a motion? Ms. Victor, second by Mr. Atkinson. Superintendent, are you going to speak to the motion, please?
Yes. So as I mentioned earlier, we are bringing to you an agreement with the Portland Education Association representing both our teachers and our educational technicians to make some modifications to supplement our existing collective bargaining agreement. The the full document is in board docs. It was in the executive content. I've also moved it now, I think,
Yep.
to the public content. So members of the media and others who had wanted to see it, it's now there. We worked over the past 3 weeks with the association to enter into this memorandum of agreement that is necessary for us to be able to open schools. We had a very productive set of meetings with the representatives from the association, and I would like to thank them for the spirit of collaboration and rolling up their sleeves and trying to find solutions to their concerns and our concerns. And that's what this memorandum of agreement represents. I'm going to walk through some of the key provisions of the memorandum so that you and members of the public understand what some of the things are that we are building into the contract. The first 4 items that you see in the summary in the memorandum of agreement are all different aspects of standard collective bargaining items, such as compensation and working compensation benefits and working conditions. So the agreement provides for emergency sick bank for staff of 15 days in addition to their existing leave benefits. And coupled with B, which is that once that emergency leave is exhausted and all of the other benefits are exhausted, that we've made a commitment to anybody who needs to still either care for themselves or a family member who's affected by COVID, that there would be no loss of compensation. So we're basically assuring that they will not be not paid because they ran out of sick leave and so on. We also agreed to provide salaries, wages, and benefits as included in the collective bargaining agreement through the pandemic. And I think one of the things that is included in there is that if the sports season and things like that are changed in any way, that we will negotiate with the parties around what the resolution is for those situations. So unlike what happened in the spring, that we will actually negotiate that. And then we also, agreed to provide leaves, which we've done already in many cases, to staff who request them, based on on an analysis of the specific, circumstances surrounding that individual. So those are the first 4. E is includes a process to allow staff members who may not be comfortable with their image being online, being able to request a accommodation of some sort of flexible work arrangement, and for us to review those requests on the basis of their specific concerns and try to find a workable, flexible working arrangement. So that was something that there were members of the association that felt strongly about that, and so we negotiated that into this agreement. We also agreed that we could have teachers could be required to come to work 20 minutes before students arrive. The current contract says that they are required to be here 15 minutes before that. And so this is an expansion of that provision. And so that we needed to be able to accommodate some of the early buses that may be arriving with students up to 20 minutes before the start of the school day. We also agreed to waive the 120 minutes per week that are outside of the student attendance day that currently is a part of the contract. If you are familiar with the contract, you know that there's 180 minutes, so there's still 60 minutes that we would continue to have for building level meetings on Wednesdays. That is not affected by this, but all of the other time that our teachers are required to account for. And I just want to underscore that our teachers work significantly more than those 120 minutes, but those are the 120 minutes that they are asked to account for. And those also are often, sort of discussed at the building level with the school leadership team to make determinations around how that time might be used for IEP meetings or for grade level team meetings and things along those lines. And so that is waived for the remainder of this year. That does not affect our high schools and middle schools, because the way that we're structuring our return to school with those grade levels, that will not be, there is a lot of additional time outside of the student contact time that would for all of the different activities that they would normally be doing during these 120 minutes. And then it also waives some of the existing contractual requirements around posting and interviewing candidates. So it gives us the flexibility that we needed to be able to staff up some of those positions that, as I mentioned earlier, are preventing us from, feeling completely ready to go. And so, it waives the 2-week posting, the internal interview process, and the committees that make those that do the interviews and make the recommendations. And then it also suspends our formal evaluation system for this year. And I think that's something that both parties had an interest in, understanding that where we are with what we need to prioritize, that the formal process of, X number of classroom observations with formal feedback and things like that was going to be extremely challenging for us to be able to execute on and for teachers to be able to prepare for. So we suspended that. I do want to underscore that it does not in any way take away from our ability as managers to observe instruction or to investigate any complaints that might be brought to our attention, and to deal with all of the concerns that can happen over the course of the year. So that's the essence of the specifications. The agreement is in place through August 31st of next year, unless it needs to be modified or extended in some way by consent of both parties. So that's the essence of the agreement that we're asking you to ratify today. The association ratified it in a representative assembly. Just before the meeting, I got a phone call from President Carrie Foster letting me know that it had been ratified.
Thank you, Superintendent. Board members, if we have any questions, or if you want any, I know we had a good discussion at our executive session, but if we had any questions, anything else we want to clarify, please use the raise your hand features. And if we don't have questions at this time, I'll move us over to public comment and then bring it back for our discussion. So before I start comment, let me read once again the public comment protocols. I'm going to ask the members of the public to also use the raise your hand feature on Zoom. Members of the public can find this feature either on the webinar control bar at the bottom of your screen, or it can be found by selecting your name on the participant screen. I will call the name of the participant who has their hand raised. I ask them to please state their name and address when they begin speaking. They'll have 3 minutes to speak if we're nearing the end of the 3 minutes, I will politely interrupt you. And if you need additional time, we can grant an additional minute, at the end of which I will probably mute your microphone. Having said that, if there's any member on the public that wants to address the board, now is your opportunity to do so. Okay. We'll go to Carrie Foster. I'm not host, so I cannot grant the speaking permission on Zoom. So, Anne, if you can help me with that, we'll go to Carrie first. And Carrie, if you give me...
Yeah, are we good?
Yeah, well, let me get my timer ready. I'm sorry, I wasn't prepared.
Yeah, Carrie, you're good from a technical perspective.
All right, thank you.
All right, Carrie, go for it.
Okay, so first, I would, of course, like to thank and recognize, although I'm going to do that without naming names because I know I would leave someone out. It would take forever. But yeah, thank and recognize everyone who worked crazy hours on codifying these protections to health and safety and the COVID-related changes. And I just want to echo the same stuff that the superintendent just said about having a collaborative approach. We're so grateful to be part of a team whose intentions and ideals are so good and so high. So I hate to follow that with a but I would be remiss if I didn't also outline that from our meeting today talking about this, I learned that educators in buildings are really concerned about inviting students into those buildings tomorrow. When the workday ended today, there was no training for families yet on the screening app, no plan for how to identify who didn't complete the state mandated screening before they entered buildings, no communication on what to do with students who don't. Teachers also reported that they don't have assurance yet on HVAC compliance and that some updates were delivered but not installed when they left the building today. There's been a ton of concern about PPE that's been ordered but has not been delivered yet. It sounds like there was a delivery to at least one school after 3 p.m. today, but staff has not seen it, received it, or tested it. And they're scared. They don't want to put students into an unsafe situation in buildings if all those many layers of mitigation are not in place. And of course, since some of these are state mandates and our staff doesn't have the info or evidence that they've been followed. Now, I know how much is happening behind the scenes, and I've seen people working ridiculous hours. I get emails stamped at all times of day and night. So this is not at all a criticism of the work that's gone into this, but I have to tell you that staff is super concerned about not being ready, and they don't want to invite students if they're not ready and if it's not safe. So yes, once again, to be clear, we're very grateful to the lengths the district has gone to procure the PPE and create safety protocols. But as the association leader, I can't just tell people to cross their fingers and trust that all these things will magically happen before they arrive at school tomorrow. The people in the buildings told me today that they're not ready to welcome kids safely, and we all need that reassurance in a pandemic. It's a mandate, and it can't be based on faith. It has to come first. So we're asking that students don't come into buildings quite yet until the staff can see that these things are in place. It might just be a day. It might just be a day delay, but it does have to happen. So again, thanks for all the work that's been done so far, and thank you for the consideration of this.
Thank you, Carrie. Next, we'll go to Sue Anderson.
Hi, thank you for your hard work. I echo Carrie in that sentiment. I am a PEA rep from East End School, so I come with concerns of my colleagues.
Sue, do you mind starting with your name and address, please?
Yeah, I'm Sue Anderson. I live at 42 Dorset Street in Portland, Maine. I'm a teacher at East End Community School and a PEA rep for the school. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can, loud and clear.
Yeah. So our school is scheduled to do a dry run with half of our students tomorrow. And today was our first day talking about that. And staff shared some concerns with me. Some staff are assigned arrival duty, and we're told that we'd be taking temperatures, which doesn't seem to be in alignment with the MOU agreement. We were told that the symptoms checklist won't be used and that families aren't set with a symptoms app yet. We certainly don't have, as far as I understand, protocols in the school for receiving information from the symptoms app and processing it. I was not in the building today, but when I was at the end of last week, I did not have things like hand sanitizer and spray solution in my classroom. And I will admit that I'm an ELL teacher, so I'm not going to be receiving students tomorrow. But other teachers reported that they didn't have those supplies in their classroom, and many staff didn't have the PPE delivered, the shields if requested, and the masks. We were told by the nurse that would be delivered to us later today or tomorrow morning. But it's that lack of assurance. Then again, there's been a lot of hard work by administrators and all staff at my school and across the district, but it's that lack of assurance that, going to sleep tonight, not knowing that all those things are in place, that is of concern. And there is definitely concern about being responsible for taking students' temperatures tomorrow morning. And there was also a concern expressed to me just about ensuring that there's a lot of good marking of what 6 feet means for elementary school students, and wanting to have more of that in place at our school before students are there. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue. Next, we'll go to Michelle Lawless.
Thank you very much. My name is Michelle Lawless. I live at 430 Woodford Street, and I am the president of the EdTech Union for the Portland Public Schools. And I, too, would like to echo the endless hours of work that everybody in the district have been putting in. I've had the pleasure of seeing firsthand just how hard everybody from central office to building administrators to teachers to union members have been working, and it's quite impressive. Again, that being said, I've also been fielding up to 12 hours of phone calls over the last 5 days from EdTechs, specifically those who work in our Beach, Bridge, Breathe, and FLS programs, who will be exposed to the bodily fluids and emissions of their students, and have been given various messaging from you need to bring your own mask, to you'll only receive one shield, despite the fact that the CDC and the DOE recommend that staff who work that closely with students like that have N95s, goggles, shields, protective gowns, gloves, and even scrubs. Not to mention that Erin Frazier, the special ed director of the DOE for the state of Maine, has also stated that if a special ed student refuses to wear protective equipment, then they should be remote learners and not put bus drivers and other students in harm's way. Some of the planning of what to do with a student in special ed who refuses to wear a mask is also varied, and the messages are different, not just from program to program, but from EdTech to EdTech, what they're hearing. And many of them today were told that if a student refuses to wear their protective gear, they will be isolated with that student alone in the room. And the rooms that were identified do not have ventilation. So as we can see, despite all the hard work that has been done, there's still much to be done to keep our students safe and to keep our staff safe. And I would ask that you consider waiting until everything is not just ordered or not just heard that it will be arriving, but once everything is actually in place to keep our students safe and their families and our members, that's when we start. So thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Excuse me. Next, actually, the Sue Anderson, I believe we already spoke, unless there's someone else speaking on her account. Sometimes we'll use the same account and a different speaker. So Sue, is your hand still raised from before, or is this another opportunity to speak?
No, sorry, must not have put it down.
Okay, that's all right. Sometimes people use the same account, we'll have different speakers. I wanted to make sure I didn't skip anyone. So the next person, the screen name is M. White.
Good evening. You never know quite when you're going to get called, so you have to be ready. Hi, everyone. I'm Martha White, and I'm a teacher at Lincoln Middle School, and I'm also the vice president of the Portland Education Association. And I'd like to thank the district exec team for their super hard work and collaboration on the MOU, and the board for convening tonight to consider a ratification. I would like to recommend that you do ratify it. So that would be, of course, excellent. And I'd also like to echo some of the sentiments of my colleagues about the readiness, in particular for tomorrow, being just an orientation day, because one of the big concerns among some of the things that President Foster mentioned is the readiness of the screening application, and the late rollout this afternoon. I think it was like after 4 o'clock this afternoon. It started to come together, and some information on it went out. But my understanding is parents won't have had any training or opportunity to be familiar with it until tomorrow morning. And to my mind, if it's an orientation day and it's an optional day for students to attend, and if we're thinking of it as a test run, I'd like us to think of it as a test run for staff as well as for students, and to consider that if we're not ready, that we could postpone I hate to suggest that half the students who would be, because we're attending in 2 cohorts, one tomorrow and one Thursday. I hate to make it so that half the cohorts wouldn't get to come on Wednesday, but we start school next week, and I would rather take the information that we have at hand about the lack of readiness on this piece and consider not holding the orientations tomorrow, and be able to take time to coordinate the logistics for that. It involves like kids lining up around the exterior of the school and having to figure out where they are located in order to find them, in order to screen them before they can come in, and a communication vehicle for teachers to know to hold off on letting students in, and all of that. It's not in place yet, and I'm concerned about the safety, the health of everyone, and the potential for an unintended outbreak if we are inadvertently admitting students into the building who may not have been appropriately screened. So that's a big concern. So I'd like to echo that and suggest that as it's an orientation and it's a test run, we're not ready, we can hold off, because we really don't start until next week, and then let's do a solid test run on Thursday for those schools that are not prepared to go tomorrow. But other than that, really excellent work all around. Enjoy working with all of my colleagues in central office, and want to commend the school board for all of your hard work all summer and again tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Appreciate it. I don't see any other hands raised right now. So, oh yeah, here we go. Stephanie, do you? Oh, I am a host now.
Okay. Yes, thank you, everybody. Stephanie Vonglinsky, 11 Leisure Lane in Durham. And I, too, want to thank everybody for all their hard work and many hours spent to get to this point. I just want to echo, and I don't know if I said that I'm from the Maine Education Association. Sorry about that. I'm a UNISERV director. For those of you that don't know me, and I work to support the Portland Education Association. And I just want to speak in favor of and to encourage the board to delay the start in terms of the orientations that we have scheduled based upon everything that you have heard from the people that have spoken before me. We have examples of other districts that have done, or other schools that have done just that because they were not ready to open, whether it be health and safety concerns, somebody testing positive, issues of community spread. The health and safety mandates that were spelled out in the framework for reopening are now encompassed, as you all know, in the most recent governor's executive order. And those have the force of law. And these are also tied to funding. So if these are not met, there could be serious ramifications for the district. So not only is this an issue of student safety, and safety for staff, but there could be ramifications beyond that as well. And again, in hearing about the fact that we don't even have PPE for folks that are going to be exposed to some of our most at-risk students, that we don't have confirmation of adequate ventilation, that we don't even have hand sanitizer in some of the schools, some of the most basic requirements. I don't see how we can, in good faith, suggest that we should bring students into school tomorrow, again, let alone staff. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Stephanie. All right, I don't see any other hands raised from the attendees list. So I will close the public comment portion. Oh, somebody else raised their hand. Can I, before we go to the next speaker, to the next person, I just want to clarify that we're taking public comment on the board's action to ratify the MOU. And I really want to try to narrow our comments to that. We will have an opportunity to have comments on items not on tonight's agenda. And didn't want to interrupt anyone because I figured we were going to hear, we did need to hear some of these concerns raised, but I do want to try to keep us limited to the board's role to ratify the memorandum. And I don't think that our ratification of this memorandum will have and will be us directing the opening of school tomorrow or not. I do see that being raised as a concern, but I don't think that that's part of the MOU ratification tonight. I just wanted to be clear about that, and again, not cut someone off halfway through. So having said that, if there are no other hands raised on the attendees list, I'll bring it back to the board for board discussion, and I'll remind us also to use the raise your hand feature on Zoom. And while I wait for hands to be raised, we are in the board discussion, so I hate to kind of start this off with a question, but I did want to offer the superintendent an opportunity to address some of the concerns that were raised, specifically around the PPE. And I want to ask that question in relation to the MOU, where there is language about the requirement of PPE. So Superintendent, do you mind clarifying some of those points?
Yep. So thank you. I do want to be clear that the board is not considering whether we are postponing the start of school tomorrow. That is my decision to make. And as I mentioned earlier, I told you where we are in terms of the schools that we will not be hosting a run through, and otherwise we are ready to go. I know that there are concerns about many different things. I share all of them. I've had many sleepless nights, and will probably continue to have sleepless nights as we get ready for this. I will also tell you that there are going to be hiccups in the opening of school. There are hiccups in the opening of school all the time, and there will be tomorrow as well. I want to address some of the concerns that have been raised. There were concerns about the app. The app is a single question that is sent via email to families. Tomorrow at 6 o'clock in the morning, they will be getting a email or a text message asking them to affirm that they have done the symptoms check and that they've not answered yes to any of the questions. So that there's no training required to be able to do that. That's, I get something like that from my, I can't even think of what I would get that says, say yes to something. But, like we all get those text messages all the time that just ask us to affirm something or say no to something. So that's really what we're actually talking about for the app. There is a back-end report that will not be as functional as we would like it to be tomorrow, which will require somebody in the school office to download the outcome of that survey and then filter those who did not answer the questions and those who answered the questions saying that they actually had been out of state or something along those lines. And it will require staff at the school level to do some additional review with those students, asking them the questions. If they're too young, calling their parents, but not letting them into the building until that actually happens. We'd love for that functionality to be in place. It's not. So this is a test run of everything. And I will point out that, there will be a significant number of people who will not do the survey tomorrow morning. And that's what we're test run for, right? We'll see that 20%, 30%, 40%, 50% of people did not do that. So it will give us a better idea of what it is that we're going to be facing the following Monday. With regards to PPE, and let me just back on the app issue, that's going to happen whether we do it tomorrow or whether we do it next Monday. Right? That functionality is not going to be built until October now. So, between now and October, every morning somebody's going to have to filter those spreadsheets to find out who is, who did not do their symptoms check and, ask them the questions and contact their parents and so on. We expect that as time goes by, as this becomes more of a habit for people, that when they get that in the morning, they will, know that they need to, attest to the fact that they actually have done that. I also want to point out that we're one of very few districts who's actually doing a formal attestation, that most other districts are simply informing parents that they're supposed to do this, and that if they that they shouldn't send their kids to school if they have symptoms or if they've been exposed to somebody who has symptoms or has been diagnosed as having COVID, or if they've been in any of the states other than those on the list that are approved. So just, to sort of level set, we're one of very few districts that are actually doing that. Most others are just sort of using the quote unquote honor system. So moving on to PPE, we have a significant amount of PPE that is already in schools, and I would like to put on the screen what that actually looks like so that everybody can see that. So you can see here for all of the different areas where PPE is required, what is currently available and what is not currently available. So, the face shields, which you heard about, there are 700 face shields that have been distributed to schools, and we are waiting on delivery of the remainder to get us up to 2,200. One of the agreements that we made that is part of the health and safety agreement that you're not ratifying, but that is something that we entered into with PEA, is that anybody who wants a face shield can have it. So, we are expected to get 2,200. We have 1,500 staff members. So that gives us, one for every staff member, if every staff member wanted to have one, plus the ability to do another 700. And we have, additional, the ability to order additional face shields. So that is not a area where I would, share that concern. I know that some of those were delivered today. And I will point out that we have not delivered to Lyseth and more because the truck got into an accident as they were delivering this afternoon. Everybody is fine, but it delayed the delivery to those two schools, so they will have it very first thing in the morning tomorrow. We've gotten the K95 disposable masks. Those are the high quality, surgical level masks that are being delivered. I also, this is not reflected here because this is part of our effort to go above and beyond. We have ordered N95 masks that are being delivered for all staff on Thursday. So on Friday or by Monday of next week at the latest, all of our staff will have access to a mask that is, far beyond the level that is required in the state agreement. Some people mentioned hand sanitizer and things along those lines. There is a shortage. We've gotten none of the sanitizing wipes that were originally promised. So instead, we've added that J512 sanitizer boxes that we went out and procured ourselves and delivered. The ones in yellow are still in process of getting delivered. But those were brought to schools today, as well as the bottles, the spray bottles. I think somebody mentioned those. Those were also brought to schools today. So starting tomorrow, all of this will be available to staff. I think somebody also mentioned that ventilation had not been installed. There were a significant number of fans and air purifiers with HEPA filters that were delivered today. There's no installation required. Those are in boxes. People will be issued those. They will be able to bring them to their room, plug them in, push the button, and they will be running. So I know that there's a tremendous amount of trepidation. I absolutely can guarantee you that there are going to be hiccups along the way tomorrow, Thursday, and next week. There's no question that they will be, that this will not be, a flawless start. But, many of the things that you heard today are, just not factual.
Thank you, Superintendent. We can probably, can we go back from the screen sharing so I can see the... All right, board members, do we have any other discussion? Okay. So before we take it to a vote, I'll say that I am going to support ratifying this agreement. I'm very pleased to hear both sides speak to a process that was effective and that recognized a lot of the concerns. I want to acknowledge a lot of the comments that were made and even some of the clarifications that the superintendent just provided. I clearly there is a heightened sense of awareness in our work environment and our own feeling of safety, and that needs to be acknowledged and recognized. And I think that that's legitimate. I do want to try to separate those concerns for at least the next few moments, so that we can focus on, again, this MOU and this agreement that did achieve a lot of positive outcomes, and that did meet a lot of did address a lot of the concerns and issues that have been brought up. And again, it was a process that provided a platform for these concerns to be addressed. So I'm happy with what is in front of us to consider approving, and I will be voting in support of it in a few moments. Ms. Morioni, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate your remarks, Chair Rodriguez. I am overwhelmed by the amount of work that continues to go into all of our superintendent and his staff and all of our teachers, and working extremely hard to come to clarification, understanding. It will continue. In my opinion, this is not going to be, we'll sign off on this, and I imagine there's just going to continue to be more things that will need to be worked on and addressed, and to also validate the concerns about tomorrow. I hear you. We all hear you. It's not ideal. The situation is not ideal for any of us, but I also recognize the fact that, teachers, they want to be prepared. I mean, that's your job, is you be prepared, and then you can prepare your students for the day and for the week and months. We're just in a very, very different time of just honestly having to be extremely flexible, having to be extremely understanding and compassionate with one another. And honestly, if you make it through the next few days, the next few months, and our kids stay safe and somehow they get to connect and are happy, that, I mean, it's a high bar, in my opinion, just to meet even just that. So I just want to recognize all your hard work, and I wish you well for tomorrow. I think, again, that the board will stay on top of all concerns and make sure. But as the superintendent said, this is his ultimate decision, and it's keeping him up at night. It keeps board members up at night as well. I think, again, I will support the MOU basically because I got to hear how much effort and work went into all of those paragraphs of decision making with both the unions and their superintendent and staff. I wasn't at the table, I can't tell you, but if you put your heart and soul into what you wanted and you brought it forward and you got at the very least a good compromise out of it, which seems is what has happened, I will support that tonight. So thank you for all of your hard work always. And my only friendly amendment would be just to clean up the Roman numerals and the letters for the paragraphs. With the last version we got, it just seemed a little bit like there was a page that had like all ones instead of A, B, C, D, and just editing updates. But I really do appreciate all the hard work. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Morioni. I don't see any other hands raised from board members, so I'll move us along. All those in favor of ratifying the memorandum of agreement between the Portland Board of Education and the Portland Education Association, by roll call, please indicate. Superintendent?
Mr. Atkinson?
Yes.
Mr. Balfons?
Yes.
Ms. Bondo?
Yes.
Mr. Burke?
Yes.
Ms. Figdor?
Yes.
Ms. Morioni?
Yes.
And Chair Rodriguez?
Yes. And so the motion passes unanimously with a 7-0 vote. Next on our agenda, given that is before the hour of 10 p.m. or prior to 10 p.m., we can take public comment on any items not on this evening's agenda. And if there are any members of the public that want to address the board, I will go over the public comment rules again quickly. So I'll wait just a couple of moments to see if any hands are raised. Okay, so we'll have Martha White. You should be able to unmute yourself.
Ha, surprise, I can. This is Martha White again, Lincoln Middle School and the VP of the PEA. I spoke before about primarily the screening application, and I want to thank the board for ratifying the MOU. Very much appreciated to have that in place, and so thanks for that. And I just wanted to, I guess, this maybe is an appeal to you, Javier, to consider the logistics of a lot of that material that you talked about being delivered today, this afternoon, after school hours. It doesn't mean that it's in the hands of all of the educators, when we're actually in school, and just thinking about the logistics of coordinating the screening app and trying to figure out which kids have it and don't have it. And I want to say that I understand your point of view about that there are going to be hiccups and it's going to be messy, but it feels like it's too messy for tomorrow. And that it's an orientation day. It's not, it's a practice day. And if we know we're not ready, I think a lot of us, not the majority of us, would appreciate a day to pull it together and then run it on Thursday. And I don't know if we could run it Friday too, but push Wednesday to Friday. I don't mind hiccups, but it feels like it's going to be more than hiccups tomorrow. And I just wish you would consider the option for buildings that aren't really ready to be able to suspend tomorrow. And I think that's just about it. But I also wanted to acknowledge our district's work at exceeding the state requirements and all of the extra supplies and work that you're doing on behalf of our students and our staff, and just to say thank you for that, but also to ask you to consider the possibility of allowing some flexibility on tomorrow, because I think the logistics aren't really in place, and I don't think it's worth the risk, to be honest. But anyway, so thanks and good night, everyone.
Thank you. And I don't see another hand raised on the list of attendees. So I will close the public comment for tonight. Sorry, I will close the public comment for tonight, and ask that we have a motion to adjourn. Ms. Morioni, second by Ms. Bondo. All those in favor, please indicate, and we can raise our hands to vote. And that is unanimous, 7-0 vote. And we've adjourned at 8:12 p.m., which is also a very respectable time, even for a special meeting. Thank you all for your work tonight. We'll be, I'm sure, talking very soon. Have a good night.